You know, ostriches, well, they don't really bury their heads in the sand, but it's a beautiful metaphor for a conversation about concussions. Now, we all know the story by now, how chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, has destroyed the lives of countless athletes, construction workers, firefighters, and others who are susceptible to head trauma in their daily lives. So here is the big idea. If we really believe the science, then why are highly dangerous activities, sports in particular, still legal? Well, it's complicated and intensely personal, and we may need to twist the lens and look at concussions in a whole new light. Like an ostrich, I don't want to have this conversation. You see, I'm from the 70s and 80s where we didn't know any better. As kids and young adults, we played every type of violent sport there was, and we were told to man up and get back out there, even after being knocked out cold. And other than the pain, the disorientation, and the lingering effects, we never gave it another thought, and we certainly did not discuss concussions with anyone. As a parent, I encourage my own kids to play blood sport. And while the protective gear had certainly improved, head injuries, well, they were still common. My kids and the kids I coached endured concussions on more than one occasion, and yet still returned to those sports in due time. Looking back on it now, I guess there goes my Parent of the Year award. As an aside, you know, for tennis players, long-distance runners, swimmers, and other athletes in non-violent sports, the idea of sustaining life-altering injuries at the hands of your opponent seems like a really dumb idea. For non-athletes, the idea of violent injury or death from a largely recreational pursuit is insanity, pure insanity. And while I'm not all the way there yet, I'm tending to agree. You know, driving without a seatbelt, smoking 2 packs a day, or having a cold beer between your knees in the old station wagon are all things we now thankfully recognize as high-risk activities. Seatbelts are the law, impaired driving is illegal, and smoking is only permissible because there's too much money in it to have the laws changed. Really? Can you imagine trying to get cigarettes approved today as a new product? I mean, no chance. And yet we still allow it, which is a great segue into the next thought. If we now know that the brain may be permanently damaged by severe blows to the head and equally by smaller repeated head trauma, why are activities that promote this behavior still legal? Well, in a word, money, and perhaps in a second word, tradition. It would be as un-American to ban football in schools as it would be to disrespect the military. It's absolutely unthinkable to ban contact hockey in Canada or to disallow heading the ball in European soccer. Yet the evidence is very clear that permanent brain damage and injury will likely occur to a percentage of children who participate in these sports. Brain damage as a result of fun and recreation. Really? And how about boxing, martial arts, or even Olympic diving? Diving head first from a great height and meeting the water's surface is brutal. And yet we send our kids up the ladder, we lace up their boxing gloves, and regale the virtues of a black belt. I'm starting to side with the pacifists. So what to do? As a former football player, hockey player, diver, and the like, I benefited greatly from so many aspects of these sports. Camaraderie, commitment, physical training, playing through minor injury and pain, emotional and mental toughness, and other lessons that I cherish and carry with me for life. And I can hardly bear the thought of all these activities being gone forever. And yet, I have justified the cost-benefit analysis of these activities for nearly 50 years, and my arguments are starting to ring hollow. Like a reformed smoker or a dieting zealot, I'm coming to realize that violence in kids' sports must soon go the way of so many things in our society that used to be acceptable. You know, for people like me, dinosaurs from another age, it's hard to let go. The only good news is that I may not have to, because the insurance companies will soon do the dirty work for me. As sure as you're hearing this, the day is coming when insurance policies will no longer cover injuries sustained from violent sports, period. And that will be the end of it, all in an instant, for better or for worse. And like the real dinosaurs, that day will be the end of people like me and my outdated views as well. And if things change and preserve the lives or even the quality of life of a handful of kids, it's pretty hard to argue with that logic. And before I go, please check out part 2 of this Twisted Lens, where we hear from a professional kickboxer who loved the sport, but now finds himself as a father and a grandfather and tells us if he would still encourage his family to follow in his footsteps, knowing what we all know these days about concussions. It's a fascinating discussion with a few twists and surprises.